Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Happy Diet, Happy Life series with Kounsel. My name is Olga from Kounsel, and I'm your host for today. Today, we're talking to the incredible professional, Katelyn McCormack. She is the registered dietitian with a concentration in medical nutrition therapy, MNT for short. And Katelyn is going to teach us all about the celiac disease. Katelyn, it's a pleasure to talk to you today.
Hi, thanks for having me, Olga. I'm very excited to be here.
I love it so much. And actually, I could be one of your patients because I was told I have gluten intolerance, I have IBS. So I'm so excited to
Mm,
talk to you as much as everybody. And,
yeah.
but when we talk to any professional, there's usually a story behind getting into a certain profession or field. So, what prompted you to become a nutritionist?
Yeah, I think what really got me started interested in nutrition in the first place, several several years ago, I used to do CrossFit with my family, and they were big on the paleo diet there at the time. And so I tried it out with my mom for about, I think we did it for a month.
Hmm.
And they're really big on not eating processed foods, sticking to fruits, vegetables. Um, it says no dairy, but I included dairy because I can't give up cheese, milk, and all that.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
just
Okay.
as I was going through that process, through that diet, like I just started feeling better, just healthier in general. And that started getting me really interested in learning about nutrition, how food affects the body, and just really wanting to help others experience that for themselves, just experience that feeling of feeling better. And so to apply that to celiac disease, like I know how awful it is with the symptoms. It's just miserable. It can be miserable. So yeah, that's just a really big passion of mine, is helping educate people about nutrition and just teaching them, about nutrition, how to hopefully feel better as they, change their diets.
Right. And a lot of people say that food is medicine, but we don't
Yes.
really apply it this way. I think we're always looking for supplements. We're not really taking a close look at our diet unless we really want to change our appearance, whether gain weight, lose weight. But let's start really from scratch. So, what is celiac disease?
Yes, so celiac disease, it's also called gluten sensitive enteropathy. Try to say that 5 times fast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Gluten sensitive enteropathy. So basically, what celiac disease is, it's an autoimmune disorder, and it affects the proximal and the middle sections of the small intestine. So the proximal being like the first part of the small intestine. So
Hmm.
first part and the middle, the small intestine. So celiac disease involves an autoimmune reaction to gluten in the diet, meaning if somebody consumes gluten, your body overreacts to it. It's like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? This isn't okay. So your body attacks essentially the lining of your small intestine to keep your body from absorbing the gluten, because it sees gluten as a threat to your body.
Got it.
Um, mhm. Symptoms can appear anytime in life, really. A lot of people these days, even friends my age, have celiac disease, but a lot of cases actually end up happening later in life. About 20% of celiac disease is diagnosed around the age of 60.
Wow.
So
Okay. Really? So you pretty much suffer your whole life and then realize what happened. right?
You
It's
could
sort of
potentially.
wow, so it's so amazing that you're teaching us here today because you will literally save somebody so much time, really a lifetime, where they can fix it easily just by avoiding certain foods, as I assume. But
That's the goal.
awesome. So, as I told you, I have been told that I have gluten intolerance, I have IBS. Now, you describe celiac disease. It sounds sort of familiar for me. So, are we all talking about the same thing, or is there a difference between those three?
There is actually a difference between celiac, IBS, gluten intolerance. They're very subtle differences, but there are differences. So if we're looking at celiac, celiac is an autoimmune disease. It's triggered by an exposure to gluten in the body. Um, the we'll get into a bit more of this later, but the tests involved in diagnosing celiac involve investigating the presence of antibodies in the blood, and so therefore the food therapy to treat celiac would be to remove gluten from the diet. Again, we'll go into more detail in that later, but for IBS it's more of a functional GI disorder. And basically, what that means is there's some kind of disturbance between the connection between your brain and your gut. So
Okay.
with a person with IBS, um, there's I'm trying to think of how to explain it. So that disturbance in that communication triggers the intestine to freak out and just get whatever is in there out of there as fast as it can. It doesn't
Okay.
function, slowly like it's supposed to. So the tests involved with that would be more, is there pain improvement after you go to the bathroom? How often are you going? Is it diarrhea or not? Just
Mm-hmm.
looking at those kinds of things. And then the food therapy for that would be more. It could be caused by gluten, or it could be other things. There's a little bit of tests, like a trial period with that, and then for gluten intolerance sensitivity, it's a little bit more hazy. The cause of those isn't really fully understood yet. They're still working on that, still working on the science behind that. The symptoms can be really similar to celiac. The big difference there is that your body is not attacking your small intestine. There's no damage to your intestine there. It's just more of it's kind of a general reaction and symptoms going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the tests for those basically involve just ruling out celiac. So if they find you don't have celiac, then they can say, okay, so it's probably just a gluten sensitivity that you're dealing with. And a similar thing with the medical nutrition therapy for that, it may involve removing gluten from the diet, but it may not be necessary. Again, it depends on the person for that.
Okay, so I would say IBS is more difficult to ignore. You really would be feeling unwell. You would go to the doctor and then hopefully get the diagnosis, which will help you. And it's more serious, right? It's more difficult.
More immediate. Yeah, it's
Okay, but to clear the air for everybody who is watching and thinks, oh my God, this sounds horrible. Can we die from it?
the short answer is possibly, but the chances of it happening are very, very unlikely. Just
Okay.
because, yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's
Yeah.
hope, guys. There's hope. Okay.
Yes. So basically what's going on, the biggest, like, the celiac disease in and of itself is not going to kill you, but as if it's left untreated, as time goes by, we're going to get into more of this later too,
Mhm.
but as time goes by, if it's left untreated, celiac can cause a lot of nutritional deficiencies your body's just going to not absorb the nutrients it needs to survive. So the longer you go without treating it, the more you'll get into malnutrition. So it's a very slow, it's a slower process when it comes to that. So and the treatment for celiac is very simple. It's just removing gluten from your diet. So it's very treatable, easy to catch. So the chances of you actually dying are very, very small.
Okay, that's fantastic. But
it is very good, yes.
you told us about the process, but if you don't mind telling us more about what exactly happens if we eat something that we can't really digest or that irritates our digestive system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of to start, if that's okay, we'll go into a little bit of an anatomy lesson here and kind of start with the basics of just how the small intestine works. So I don't know if you know this, but about 90% of our digestion actually takes place in our small intestine. So
Didn't know
I
that.
feel like a lot of people believe that the stomach handles a lot of the digestion, and it does play a big part in breaking everything down. But all of the digestion, the absorption of the major nutrients happens in the small intestine. So the first section of the small intestine, the duodenum, is responsible for absorbing protein, starches, iron, folate, which is a B vitamin. The middle section, the jejunum, takes care of carbs, fats, minerals, protein, vitamins. And the ileum, which is the last part, absorbs fluid, vitamin B12. So you're basically absorbing everything in your small intestine. So when you eat gluten, when a person with celiac consumes gluten, the body attacks the lining of the small intestine, so that affects your digestion. So the lining, actually, I have a little demonstration here to kind of provide a visual of kind of what an intestine looks like. I thought about showing pictures, but
yes, please.
But they can be kind of scary. So I created a prop here. So this is, let me see. I'm trying to get the lighting right here. I don't know if you can see.
We can. Yep.
Okay. So it's supposed to look kind of. So this is basically what the intestine looks like, and so the lining of a normal healthy intestine is covered with villi. All these little fronds here. So all the pictures I was seeing, like, basically the inside of your intestine looks fuzzy because it's covered with these villi, these little projections here. Each one of these villi has blood vessels in it to maximize absorption of nutrients into the body. So this is a normal, healthy intestine. And then this is what the intestine of a person with celiac looks like. It's completely smooth on the inside. All of the villi covering the inside of the intestine there is gone because the body's just attacked it, taken it all away. So the more that a person with celiac consumes gluten, the more damage is done to the inside. So there's no villi, no absorption of nutrients. So the big main risks involved with that would be it could be a number of things, nutritional risks. It can cause anemia because you're not absorbing iron or the B vitamins. It can cause some osteomalacia, osteopenia, which is basically loss of bone density. because you're not absorbing vitamin D or calcium. It can also cause some problems with blood clotting because you're not absorbing vitamin K. Vitamin K is the vitamin responsible for helping with blood clotting. And the farther along celiac can go, you can run the risk of developing other conditions, diabetes, inflammation of the thyroid and liver. You can also run into arthritis and potentially even some infertility problems. So
Yeah.
lots of risks
And this,
involved with that.
and that just means that your gut or your small intestine is stealing all the nutrition that you think you're consuming because you're eating it, but this just gets lost. And I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who have diabetes as a result, who are anemic. I was one of those. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what's the reason. I'm eating vitamin B12, I'm taking the supplements, and nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
So that explains so much. So, what could be the symptoms to look out for to think like, huh, I might have celiac disease?
Yeah. So the main symptoms, I start with children because sometimes celiac can develop really early on in the life.
Uh huh.
So some symptoms in children could be impaired growth. They can have diarrhea, pica, which is eating non food materials like dirt, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
They can also have abdominal distension, like a lot of kind of bloating in the stomach area.
Mm.
Pallor, edema, which is fluid buildup in the body. Um, they can have they can also have vomiting problems as well. And then for adults, they can also the big symptoms would be diarrhea, lots of gas in the intestines, intestinal bloating, steatorrhea, which is excess fat in the stool. They can also have weight loss and again the anemia. But sometimes some people don't have any symptoms whatsoever,
Huh.
which is very interesting. Um, and then another symptom that some people can develop, it's called, read this, make sure I'm reading it right, dermatitis herpetiformis,
Mhm.
which
Wow.
is
I would read that too.
big word. That's the word of the day. um, so those are lesions that can form on the skin. It can happen all over the body, along with all of the GI symptoms. Um, but again, the symptoms may not even be present in that case too.
Wow. And I want just to tell everybody who's watching us on any platform, please type your questions in the comments and we're going to
Yeah.
highlight them and address them as we go. So if you do have questions, don't be afraid. Katelyn is here to answer you the questions as well. So, as we're nearing holiday season and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
will be having this big feast, and what if let's say I do have this issue, I have celiac disease, or somebody in my family has it, what do I have to keep in mind? Can gluten-free food touch the regular food, or is there
Mm.
anything to take into consideration?
Yeah. So if I obviously the ideal situation would be in holiday settings to create recipes without gluten to especially at Thanksgiving time, using gluten-free stuffing, which I've tried before. It's not too bad actually.
Okay.
Or making pies with gluten-free crust. Um, if that's not possible, if no one is willing to make the gluten-free recipes, probably the next best thing to do would be to focus on avoiding cross contamination. Cross contamination meaning um, something that has touched gluten in our case,
Mhm.
touching something else that is gluten free that people with celiac can only eat. So you want to reduce that as much as possible.
Okay.
So some tips kind of to maybe consider using to maybe help reduce the likelihood of that happening, you can keep separate toasters for gluten-free and regular breads, like for any breads you may be having. You can set aside an extra condiment jar, like for the cranberry sauce. You can have one set aside for the people who are putting it on their regular rolls, and have a separate jar for the people eating gluten-free. Or at the very least, just tell family members to not double dip their utensils whenever they're using the jar. So those are
And
just a couple tips there.
this is so useful because I didn't know that if one thing touches the other, then I would feel bad. Thank you. I think this will really be helpful for everybody because holiday season, a lot of people have questions. But I know I will have this conversation with my family because I'm always asking, do you have that too? So is it, I know it's not contagious, but is it genetic or is it hereditary?
It could be genetic, actually. That is one of the four. There are kind of four factors to celiac, and it definitely could be four factors that characterize celiac. It could be genetic. If both of your parents or one of your parents has it, there is a good chance that you will develop the disease as well. There's also, the exposure to gluten, environmental triggers, and the autoimmune response. But the short answer is yes, it can be genetic. So that could be something to look out for if your parents have it.
And I know mine have, and we always have those conversations. I know people think that, oh, I just don't feel good after it, but I will ignore it because I really love the taste. There's all this. But if I go grocery shopping and I pick up something and it says either gluten-free or certified gluten-free, is there a difference? Or are we talking about the same thing?
So they're kind of similar, but there is kind of a difference between the two. I actually brought an example of some labels with me too, but just kind of to explain beforehand. So gluten-free on a product in itself, for example, with something with oats, a company can put gluten-free on the label saying, yes, this is gluten-free. Whereas we'll kind of get into this too. Some oats may actually be contaminated with wheat, so therefore a person with celiac wouldn't be able to eat it. But with a label that says certified gluten-free, this means that there's a third party that has come in who has actually watched the process of how the product is made. They look at the ingredients that are used, and they can put their stamp of approval on it saying, yes, this is 100% guaranteed gluten-free. This isn't going to make you sick. So if I can show an example here.
There we go.
Yeah. I'll show you my pumpkin spice Cheerios.
Okay, pumpkin season. Yes.
Let's see, this is all backwards. So let's see. Oh, it's actually kind of hard to see on here. So it says here on the side too, but under here it says in little letters gluten-free. So this is just General Mills saying, oh yes, this is gluten-free because it has oats in it. Whereas here's an example of another label. I'm sorry. And
okay.
Yeah, under
and certified.
Yes. Right there. It says certified gluten-free. So these crackers have gone through the process with a third party, like a group of scientists or whatever, and they say, yes, you can eat this. You're not going to get sick. It's okay. So that's That's an
More
example
creditable.
of what a certified gluten-free label would look like.
Okay, and so I have my next question, and it really lines up with somebody who just commented. Karina Lander is asking, "Hi, I just got diagnosed with celiac disease. I'm sorry, Karina.
Mm.
What are some things you would recommend me to do from now on? Going out with friends and eating out have become really complicated." And so my next question, Karina,
Oh, yes.
thank you for helping me asking this. What do we need to take care of when we go out to eat? What to keep in mind?
Yeah, so whenever you go out to restaurants, you can always ask the server for an ingredient list. They should have an ingredient list on hand
Mm-hmm.
at the restaurant for people who have allergies or sensitivities or celiac. Um, and you can always ask them to ask the chef as well if there's any wheat involved in the process. But there are some kind of key words you can look out for on a menu. You want to stay away from anything that has wheat, barley, rye. Those are the big
Mm-hmm.
those are the big three kind of things to look out for. Um, Oats, we kind of mentioned this before. Oats can be a little iffy because they can sometimes be contaminated with wheat. But some people with celiac can tolerate oats. It kind of depends on the person. So that also applies to buckwheat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes puffed rice or corn cereals that you might see in some restaurants might have gluten in it too.
Mm-hmm.
But some safe foods like grains to look out for. You can get grits, corn tortillas if you're at a Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Popcorn. Well, popcorn might be a little bit iffy when you go to the movie theater. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then as far as dairy goes, just about any kind of dairy as tolerated. Um, Protein, that's usually pretty good too, as long as there's no sauces involved. If there is a sauce, you're gonna want to ask what the ingredients are in the sauce, because a lot of places use flour as a thickener
Mm-hmm.
for the sauces, so you have to be
Right.
mindful of that.
Wow.
Um,
Uh-huh.
Fruits and vegetables, you can also eat those as long as they're plain or and not in sauces again or anything like that. Dried fruit sometimes can be dusted with flour, so look out for that too. But yeah, fruits and vegetables, usually if you can tolerate them, they're good. Some people have dairy and fructose intolerance when they have celiac too. So at least at the beginning, you can eat it as tolerated. If it's still kind of iffy, you can back away from it for a little bit, and then as you continue with the gluten-free diet, you can start incorporating those foods back in. Um, fats usually like butter, margarine, vegetable oils. Those usually are a pretty safe bet too. Um, You want to look out for dressings or sandwich spreads, though, because again, wheat can be used as a thickener in those cases. Um, if you are going to a buffet, that is another opportunity for cross contamination. So in that case, you might just want to order off the menu in those
Okay.
cases, because you can know for sure that they can somewhat control the cooking environment, and there's less chance for gluten interference in there.
That's such a good point. I really never thought of that. And Karina, thank you for asking the question. And anybody who's watching, continue asking questions. We're here, and Katelyn is here to help you. And a question that perhaps a lot of people would be asking: if you have celiac disease, can you drink alcohol, or no, or maybe some certain things and some other not?
Uh-huh. Yeah. It depends. It does depend on the type. Like most wines, distilled liquors are usually pretty safe. Gluten-free beers and ciders usually are pretty safe.
Mhm.
Drink mixes like margarita mixes might, yeah, you have to check the labels, the ingredient list to make sure there isn't anything wheat related in there. Definitely no, you want to stay away from any beers,
Mhm.
lagers, and ales. Those are made with wheat, so you want to stay away from those.
And I know you shared so much already, but if we go to a certain restaurant, maybe there are some dishes that are the absolute no go. Like you see pizza, don't, unless it's gluten free. I know when I went to a restaurant, I asked for a different type of bread. I said I'm gluten intolerant. They brought some crackers that literally every single person ate, so it was very tasty. But some literal dishes that are super danger, like red lights, don't do it.
Oh, off the top of my head, yeah, like pizzas, pastas. Usually, pasta dishes are made with wheat. Sandwiches. Um, those are the big ones off the top of my head. But just
Mhm.
anything with trying to think like maybe dairy based desserts that have toppings like cobblers, pies. You want to
Yeah.
be mindful of that as well.
Okay. This is, we still have a choice, guys. Don't freak out. We still have a choice. We just have to be mindful. And we just got a second question. Kara is asking, I've noticed recently that processed items that used to be gluten free suddenly past couple months that have gluten now. So
Mm.
pretty much it was gluten free, not anymore, or at least it's not mentioned on the package. Um,
Mm.
have you noticed that? What could be the reason? Do we still keep buying them, or we better avoid it to be safe?
I would think off the top of my head that's probably a processing a processing issue. Like maybe they changed how they processed the product. Like maybe they're using equipment that is coming into contact with
Mhm.
gluten, and therefore it's getting into the quote gluten free product, and now it's making people with celiac more sick still.
Yeah,
So yeah, and it's hard when you find something that finally works for you and
it
suddenly it's making
changes.
you feel sick. But in that case, it would probably be best to look for another product just to be on the safe side.
Right. And I know you started mentioning a bit about labels. Now, when we go grocery shopping, so we want to
Mhm.
cook ourselves, we want to be safe, but how do we read labels correctly? Because I think I'm for sure don't know what I'm doing. I'm just getting whatever I think is right.
Mhm.
What to look out for?
Yeah, so I actually have a little list here of some common ingredients that you can look out for that either contain gluten or again the process of them involves gluten. The process of making them involves
Mhm.
gluten. So some of those would be malt. Malt is made from barley. Vegetable protein, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, modified starch or modified food starch could be made with wheat. Even some natural or artificial flavorings in food
Wow.
can actually come from barley, which was surprising for me. I was very surprised by that.
Ooh,
Some seasonings can have some wheat fillers in them, so just look out for that. Um, Vegetable starch again. Dextrin and maltodextrin is a really common ingredient that you see nowadays.
And I eat all of that with this, and I wonder.
Yeah, so those can be made from wheat too. So also a lot of products nowadays are, they're required to have a little box under the ingredient list that says either this contains wheat or it's processed in a plant that has come into contact with wheat. It's supposed to list the possible allergies in there by law. So you can look for that little box that mentions allergies. It'll usually say wheat, shellfish, eggs are some examples too. And there are also a lot of products that have that gluten-free. Most of the time, we kind of talked about this earlier. Most of the time, you can rely on the gluten-free label, but if you're very sensitive to gluten, you want to look for that certified gluten-free label to be extra safe.
And I just wanted to comment that I often neglect when it says processed in a plant that has been in touch with something, right? Because it's literally everywhere. I was buying supplements and it says on the supplements processed there and there, may contain whatever. Like, how come supplements? So, what are the supplements you would recommend us to take? Anything that is safe or safer?
Yes. Let me. There we go. Yeah, so that's actually a good point that you brought up about the supplements. Dietary supplements are required by law to mention if there's wheat in there. For medications, that's not the case. I'm not sure why, but for supplements, they do have to include that on the label. So some recommended supplements for celiac. It is actually important for a lot of people to get supplements just because of the nutrient deficiencies that are involved. I will say all patients should be assessed for any nutrition deficiencies before beginning any supplements, because again, it could be at the beginning stages of celiac. So if you catch it early, you might, and start that gluten-free diet, you might be okay. You might not need to take any supplements. So the symptoms you can be dealing with can help determine the types of supplements that you need. So for the basic symptoms, you can take ferritin, which is a type of iron, folate, which is a B vitamin, and vitamin D. If you're having more severe symptoms, like if you're having diarrhea a lot, just constantly, you want to focus on the fat-soluble vitamins, which are vitamin A, D, E, and K, as well as zinc. Those are some good ones. A lot of people already eating a balanced gluten-free diet typically don't require supplementation because they're already, eating all the food groups. Yeah. They're still getting all the vitamins they need. However, a lot of gluten-free products out there are not fortified with iron, folate, or any of the other B vitamins. So you might need partial supplementation for that. If you're having anemia, you would have to be assessed for this because there are different types of anemia. So you could, depending on what kind of anemia you have, you need regular iron, folate, or vitamin B12. If you're having any malabsorption issues, like you're just really struggling to absorb nutrients, you do need a multivitamin, just a standard multivitamin, one that includes calcium and vitamin D3. If you're having severe diarrhea, again, you're losing a lot of fluids when that happens. So you need to be drinking just a lot of fluids and replenishing electrolytes as well. You lose electrolytes when you have diarrhea. So Gatorade will be your friend in that case.
And George or Jorge, I see your comment. It will be next, but I want to just to follow up any brands of vitamins or maybe products, crackers, anything you have tried and you really recommend us to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Nature's Path, as far as supplements go,
Mhm.
is a good brand. I've used supplements from there before. Um, for flour, Bob's Red Mill is a good one. King Arthur has gluten-free flour. Those are both really good brands.
Mhm.
Um, Kenyon Bakehouse, it's for bread, it's really difficult to find like a really good tasting bread with gluten-free flour,
Yeah.
but so far Kenyon Bakehouse has been the best I've come across so far.
Mhm.
For crackers, Blue Diamond or Mary's Gone Crackers, those are really good.
Mhm.
For cereal, Chex and Cheerios usually are pretty safe bets.
Mhm.
Pasta Barilla has some gluten-free products in their line. Freshetta has some gluten-free pizzas. Freshetta is one of my favorite
Mhm.
frozen pizza brands. They're really good. Um, Kodiak Cakes has some pancake mixes that are gluten-free. Kodiak Cakes is really good. They have a lot of protein in their
Mhm.
products, so
Yeah.
that's always good. Um, Kind bars are really good for snacking. That's a really good one. That's one of my favorites too. And then just for snacks in general, hip peas, which are made from chickpeas, I believe. Those are really good.
Yeah.
And popcorners, I just recently discovered popcorners. It's just like a popcorn chip
Yeah.
essentially, but those are really good. And
Wow. I was hoping to cut it all out. Now I so
in moderation,
yes, yes, everything
everything
in
in
moderation.
moderation.
So George Jorge, sorry if I mispronounce your name. You asked if I have some of the symptoms, should I try going on a gluten-free diet? Katelyn, what would you recommend?
You can definitely try a gluten-free diet, yes, to see if that would help alleviate your symptoms. If you want to know for absolute sure, or if you try the gluten-free diet and it's still not working, you're still having problems, you'll want to go to the doctor and get assessed for that, because you might again have, the gluten intolerance or maybe IBS.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't have this question on the list, but I will just ask for myself. Coffee. Is it
Coffee.
okay? Is it not okay? Because I run on coffee. I need to work, so I need
Oh
to like,
yes.
do
Coffee is
we
essential.
so can we not? Shall we replace it with something else? What would you recommend?
My recommendation off the top of my head. So coffee is a diuretic. So
Yeah.
it's going to pull, which means it pulls water from your system. So if you're having really severe symptoms of celiac, like especially the diarrhea, you're losing a lot of fluids through that already. So adding coffee to that could exacerbate any dehydration that's going on. So I would say coffee in moderation, as long as you're not having any severe symptoms like diarrhea or anything like that.
Okay. All right. This is amazing. I'm so enjoying it. I'm so grateful. I know everybody's so grateful for you to for sharing so much knowledge today. My very last question, what would you leave the audience with? Perhaps they have been like George, Jorge, just having symptoms, or maybe like Kara who has questions, or Karina was just diagnosed.
Mhm.
Is there hope? Tell us, please. I'm
There,
here.
there is hope. Yes, there is always hope. Again, celiac it's very easily treatable. So there, all hope is not lost. And And the really good thing too is with more, well, it's sad that more people are being diagnosed with it, but the good thing is it's getting more recognized. And so more companies are trying to create, more products to accommodate for all those people. So if you're struggling to find a product that works for you, like the library of products is always growing. So you can always find something that will work for you. So there is hope. Yes.
I love this. And there is you who has all the knowledge. So if you're not on Kounsel yet, go to Kounsel.io and find Katelyn McCormack there. Get connected, get in touch. And you have probably different types of consultations you can offer. So you can get in touch and
Mhm.
see what would really fit you best. I know there's one more question coming in. Kara just asked, I've had it for 15 years. I'm thankful for the awareness it has now. I do
Mm,
have to order all groceries online. Yes.
yes.
And thank you. And you are the one who brings the awareness, and so many professionals too. So again, Kounsel.io, go there, find Katelyn, get in touch, book a session. And if you're a professional yourself who's wondering what is Kounsel, go to Kounsel.io and see how you can work with the platform together. Thank you so much for joining us today. Andrea just asked a question. Katelyn, maybe you can then jump on Facebook and answer it. But I want to be really mindful of your time. Thank you for joining us. We all appreciate you so much. And everybody, go on Kounsel and get connected.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you and bye. See you back soon.
Bye.